So today we're going to talk about the garden. I'm out here in the garden. We just got all of our tarps, our ground cloth, our weed barrier pulled back, and now we are ready for layering. Right now it's a really nice 50-degree-ish day in the Ozarks. Right now in December is when you want to be putting down all of your layers. So that way it gives you January, February, and March for all that snow and wind and rain and all that stuff to come in and break all those layers down into good soil that's ready for planting come springtime. If you can do it earlier than January, that's great, but December is really your last, you want to have a good 3 months for all that stuff to break down. And so today I thought we'd come in and talk about all the things that are cheap, easy to find to put on your soil to help build up your soil for your garden for the next year. Who knows what the world's gonna bring for next year? So you want to make sure you're always topping off your garden with new soil and getting it primed and ready to grow. Every year when you pull all of those tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers and whatever else out of your garden, you feel how heavy that stuff is. That's a lot of weight. What you've done is you've taken nutrients from the soil and water and you've pulled that all out of the ground. So every year you want to be able to add that back so that you can continue to pull all that great stuff out of the ground. And so we're going to talk about cheap ways to build your garden soil today. And these are all things that we have done. Okay, so I'm not recommending anything to you that we haven't done. And then we're going to go over some of the things that we have here today that we're putting on our soil. Number one is mulch at a recycling center. We have a recycling center nearby. A lot of times these tree cutting companies, they don't have a place to dump all of that mulch that they generate with their trucks. They basically chop down these trees, or storms come through and they cut up the trees, and all those limbs get thrown in the mulcher and dumped somewhere. And a lot of times if they can find a place to dump them, they'll do that. However, there's not always somebody on standby who's offering their property to dump that stuff at, or they get enough of it and they don't want any more. And so usually they dump it at places like recycling centers. So just like our recycling centers are a great place to check for free mulch. A lot of times they won't even charge you. They'll give it away for free because they want it out of here, because if no one comes and gets it, or if the price is too high, it just builds and builds and builds, and then it becomes their problem. So usually they give it away. Not always, but sometimes they give it away. So check your recycling centers for free mulch. Sawdust that sits and breaks down. Like, we have a lot of sawmills where we live, and they will take that sawdust and they will just pile it up, and it's free for the coming. You come and get that stuff, you load it yourself, and off you go. It's free, 100% free in all the cases I've seen. Now, sawdust is interesting because if you put it too heavy on your ground, it can take a while to break down. So what a lot of people have done, and what we have done, is if you want to take sawdust, and we haven't really done it here on our homestead because the sawmills do it for us, they just pile it up. You get the piles that are the oldest, and those are the ones that have already broken down the most. And so you can load that up and take that. But if you get sawdust, let it break down for a little bit if it's fresh sawdust, and then put it on your garden. Wood chips at mills. So there's a handle mill nearby. They make hickory handles for like axes and shovels and stuff like that. And theirs isn't sawdust, it's more like wood chips. And that wood chips, you can just put that right on your garden, kind of like the Back to Eden method. But those wood chips are a great nutritional resource that you can layer on top of your garden, and lasagna layer that, and then just let that break down over time and plant right into it. All of this stuff is lasagna layering that we have done. We've been doing lasagna layering now for the last 5 or 6 years, more like 7, and it works fantastic. Rice hulls, if you live in a place where there's lots of rice grown. In Arkansas, there's a lot of rice paddies here. Not so much where we are, but there are some, but more east on the Mississippi River Valley. If you live in those areas, check to see if there's rice places. They take those rice that they harvest, and then they put them through machines, and all of those hulls, they go dump somewhere. Those are free for the taking usually. There's a place here that dumps them because there's a couple rice paddies nearby on the river valley. I think it's the White River. And they just dump them, and it's free for whoever wants it. And rice hulls are a great amendment for your soil to layer that on other things. So check for rice hulls in your area. Fall leaves. Right now is the time, or just past time, where a lot of communities, a lot of municipalities will leave bags of raked up leaves on the side of the road, and they're free for the taking. And so, in fact, a lot of these communities have websites where they show you when the dates are And all you have to do is look at when those dates are and then just drive by, pick them up and load them up and go. And you come home with all those leaves and you just mow them over because you want to break down those leaves at least once. And then put that on your garden. Don't take leaves that have not been broken down or cut up once with a mower and put that on your garden because it takes forever for leaves to break down. I don't know what it is, but once you break a leaf and rip it apart, even a little bit, it begins the decomposition process for that leaf when combined with, you know, rain and snow and all that and weathering, okay? But sometimes, I mean, I have leaves piled up over there. If you dig down, there's leaves from 2 or 3 years ago still and it's full shape. But mow them over once and then put them on your garden. But right now is the great time to go out and get free leaves from all these communities that bag them up and just throw them away. Okay, make your own compost pile at home. So you got all these kitchen scraps and stuff. If you don't have chickens and places, you know, animals to throw them to, we even throw some of our food to our sheep. So if you want to start your own compost pile, if you don't have animals to feed like that, spend an entire year throwing that on a pile, and then the next year you use that pile and then you start a new pile. But then take that pile, that's free. I mean, all those scraps you usually throw down your garbage disposal, most of those can break down into great compost. Clean out your animal stalls. Do you have animal stalls? I'll never need to go get manure or pay for it because I have animals right there and I keep them in a corral area during the coldest months of the year, like right now, and they just do their business in that corral area, and every year I just go empty that corral. And I can just dump it on my garden with my tractor. So if you have animals, those are like poop factories. That's like free manure, free growing medium. Don't let that go to waste. Use it. Or if your friends have animals, you know, say, can I come clean out your stalls for you? They'll be like, sure, come on over. Take all you want. It's free. They're just happy you coming over and doing something for them that they don't have to do. Old hay. So a lot of times in a lot of areas, people will bale up a whole bunch of hay and they'll leave it in these barns and it either doesn't all get sold or it doesn't all get used. And the old hay, they don't really like it because it's lost a lot of its nutritional value. You can get that hay usually either cheap or free from the farmers because they want to clean up their barns. And that hay is great to put down on your gardens. The only caveat to that is that it's going to have lots of grass seed and you want to make sure you use some kind of tarp or whatever to cover that up. But hay, grass, which is basically just grass, is a huge nutritional boost for your soil. That will break down, the worms will come up, they will eat that stuff, and man, it just makes great soil. So if you have old hay bales, that's great soil building for your garden. You can plant right down in it, and we do that with ours every year, and then we put our tarps over it to keep the weeds down, and we just plant right in the holes of our tarps, our ground cloths, and boom, we have a great garden. Okay, straw. Wheat straw is another one. We don't have so much wheat straw here. Every once in a while we'll find it. People import it down where we are in the south, but up north they grow a lot of wheat. If you can get old wheat straw, yeah, it'll have some seeds in it, but it makes great growing medium. We've used that for sure here on the homestead. We usually find it cheap up in Missouri sometimes. Coffee shop donations. So when we first moved here, there was a coffee shop in town, and we went in there and I gave them a bucket, and every week I would come switch out that bucket and they would give me all their free coffee grounds for that week. And so they would fill up the bucket and I would take it home and I put that on my garden. That was especially the first year I was trying to build the soil up in my garden, and I was getting free coffee grounds. And so every year, that far bucket over there is full of coffee grounds. That one's full. I'm getting ready to put that on the garden today. And I even saved the filters because they're paper filters. You can get the organic ones, but just make sure they're paper filters and put that on your soil, and the worms will eat that up. There's one thing and one thing only that will turn your worms in your ground into a bunch of crack addicts, and that is coffee. Everyone loves coffee. At least all normal people love coffee. But yeah, you put that on your garden, man, it will send your worms into overdrive, and they will reproduce, and they will just go, it turns your garden into a fantastic place. Next up is eggshells. Save all your eggshells. We'll talk about this in a minute. There's a lot of great nutrition in this stuff. Save all your eggshells and grind them up into a powder and use that every year. I mean, it's like free stuff you're throwing away. A lot of people just throw their eggshells away. In fact, a lot of people throw them on a compost pile, but if you grind them up into a powder, they're much more usable in your soil if you use your eggshells that way. We'll talk about that in a second. And lastly is your wood ash. A lot of you guys have wood stoves. You know, save your wood ash. You keep all winter long, you're emptying out your wood ash from your wood stove. Save that stuff and sprinkle that on your garden. Do it lightly. Don't do it too heavy, but do it lightly every year over your garden, and that'll put a lot of nutrition in your garden. All right, so let's talk about my buckets that I got here. These 2 buckets are full of litter from our quail. So over the last 8 to 10 months or so, we've been saving all of our quail litter from all of their cages, and we got them right here, and it's kind of like a dry litter. See? It's kind of like a dry litter. And I've never used this before. This is something new for me. But it's free manure, and I don't know if it's going to be like chicken manure where it's pretty hot. I don't know. But I'm going to use it pretty lightly this year just to see, and then go from there. I had tried to do some research online. I didn't find a lot. But I'm going to use this real lightly over the garden and spread it out real thinly, and then use that as an amendment for my soil. And then the second thing is these eggshells. Eggshells, you grind them up into a fine powder with whatever you've got. I use a Magic Bullet. It does a fantastic job. It grinds them into a really fine powder. And these things are about 95% calcium. Okay, you're putting a great calcium blend on your soil. Not to mention, you got remainders of egg whites and other parts of that egg that are in there, the egg membranes and stuff. That's all good protein for all the little critters, insects, and worms that are traveling around your garden for them to eat on. So you're putting all kinds of great stuff in your garden to help promote growth. The one thing I will also mention with this, many of your diseases that you will encounter in your garden are caused by a calcium deficiency. Blossom rot is a calcium deficiency. There are many diseases. In fact, I think, based on my knowledge in the last 10 years, I think you could probably avoid about 70% of plant diseases in your garden. Some are caused by insects and fungus and other things. About 70% of the plant diseases in your garden, actually true diseases, can be avoided if you give it a very high calcium, spreading. And you're not going to burn your plants by using this stuff. So use all of your eggshells, put it into a powder, and put all of this on your garden. I think you're going to avoid a lot of plant diseases by doing that. And then the last bucket over here is filled with coffee grounds. I just put those on there, and the worm. I can't really describe it and give it words how much these worms like coffee. It's like you put it on there and their reproduction numbers go through the roof. They're just more active, they eat more, and it keeps the soil so aerated when your worms go into overdrive. I've said it many times on my channel when talking about gardens. When you walk on your garden, especially during the springtime and in the summer, it should feel like a waterbed. Your feet should give under the weight of your body as you walk through the garden. If it's not doing that, you're doing something wrong. And because I can say that, you know that your soil is alive and fluffy, and there's insects and worms moving through that, because only when that happens does your soil get soft. And even right now, it's wintertime, and most of the worms have run deep. Okay, it's been cold. We've had a lot of freezing days. We've got a lot of freezing. I think it's going to be freezing tomorrow and tonight. So the worms have kind of gone down deep. But even right now, in many places in this garden, you can feel the soil giving underneath you. Okay, that's the way it should be, especially in the springtime and summer. And you get that by layering all these different nutrients and all these things on top of one another. And just letting things break down naturally. I never till my soil. I don't have to. If you till your soil, I think you're just destroying all the mycelium and all the biodiversity that's taking place naturally in that soil to keep it alive. Okay. Anyway, all that to say, tell me what you guys are doing. Do you have any free options that you would recommend to put in your garden? Cheap, easy, free options that you could, direct someone to go to if they're looking for a way to build your garden? Listen, if you're building a first-year garden, chances are it's going to be kind of tough, with one exception: rabbit manure. If you put rabbit manure on a first-year garden, I don't care how poor your soil is, you're going to do fantastic that year. But for everything else, it takes time and layers to build a good garden biodiversity and bring that life, that allows plants to grow so strong and so abundant. But rabbit manure, if you can source rabbit manure, you can grow that stuff over anything. And it won't burn your plants ever. So, all right, be interested to see your comments below. Hope you're having a great winter, and if you better be working on your gardens, because you don't know what spring and summer is going to bring. This world is absolutely crazy. Hey, check out our merchandise over at teespring.com. You can find our Stupid Should Hurt shirt. If we had more hurt in this world, we'd have an awful, awful lot less stupid. And be sure to go to my website at AmericanHomestead.com, where you can see that place there where you can sign up for our email newsletter. I have no idea when the last days will be of me being on this platform. They hate me, boy, they hate me good. And so I want to be able to stay in touch with you. Go to my website at AmericanHomestead.com and fill out that email notification so I can get your email and put you on my newsletter and keep you updated for all the cool things we're doing here on the homestead. See you next time in the homestead. Bye! The largest Roman gold stash ever found was in Trier, Germany in 1993. 2,500 Roman coins worth over $1.2 million in melt value today was pulled from an excavation site. The obvious lesson here is that gold holds its value over time. Now, take this stack of old Soviet Union rubles. Do you know how much these are worth? Zilch. It's paper. It holds no value, and like all paper and government fiat currencies, will not last the test of time. Nobody 1,000 years from now is going to unearth these or these and jump for joy at the wealth that they have just uncovered. Only one historical example of wealth preservation has stood the test of time over and over again: the safeguard of physical gold and silver. If you have spent your entire working life putting money into a 401k or other savings and investment products, they have likely made pulling your money out either very hard or almost impossible. Genesis Gold Group can help you put that money safely into a physical gold and silver product that, like the Roman coins, will maintain their buying power long into the future. Call Genesis Gold Group today, right now, and let them develop a strategy for your savings, 401k, or self-directed IRA. A strategy of physical gold and silver. You can call the number on the screen or visit them at genesisgoldgroup.com. And be sure to say that you heard about them from an American Homestead. Hey guys, did you know you can become a patron of an American Homestead? They get access to private videos, and we send them gifts from the homestead that we make here on the homestead. And we also enter our patrons into special giveaways that are only available to them. And before you go, please check out these other great videos. Go ahead, click. Oh wait.